$1.3 trillion in student loan debt. That is 11 zeros, people. That is a big number, is it not? This is an alarming number. It's particularly alarming to me because it represents so many students who did not think about the implications of taking on this amount of personal debt in their life. It's a very scary number. There's this fabulous expression. It goes something like this. You must start with the end in mind. If you want to start, you start with the end in mind. I believe this expression can really help us all think properly about how to deal with this issue, not only of handling school, but dealing with this issue of student loan debt. I am not a financial aid expert, but I am a person who faced the monster of student loan debt. Here's my alma mater, Marymount University. Paid $29,000 for this shirt. I hope you like it. And student loan debt is a very personal issue for me, so I'm happy to talk about it. So how can we use this expression to help our children and help ourselves? So in 2015, we saw a new freshman class of 2.3 million new students that came onto campus. And here's what's really important to make sure that you tell your student. Going to college is a lot different than graduating from college. Did you know that the United States has the worst graduation rate in the developed world? Out of 10 kids, we are only graduating 5. That is it. And if we are going to start with the end in mind, that is not acceptable. When we start, we say we are not leaving until we graduate. That is the end in mind. We are not entering school unless we're willing to do the hard work to finish. It's simply too expensive to do anything but that, because these other 5 that didn't graduate, they still have their student loan debt. 1 or 2, maybe even 3 years worth of debt. This is devastating to them. So we need to make it very clear we're not going to school unless we're going to hit the books and hit them hard right away. The other thing that we need to talk about is that in our expectations for graduation, that we are going to lay out a 4-year plan. The reality is that these 5 that are actually graduating, they are not taking 4 years. So many of them now are taking 6 years. Our small private institutions, the very expensive ones, they're only graduating about 39% on time. And all of our state schools that we think are such an awesome deal, they're only graduating 19% of kids on time. So take that 4-year tuition and up it a couple years, because that's what kids are actually paying. So doing something with the end in mind says it's going to also be on time. I'm going to do everything possible to make it on time because it's too expensive to do anything less. It's not acceptable to say, I wasn't mature enough, I wasn't ready to go to school. Not acceptable. I was talking to a bunch of high school kids the other day, and this is how I put it. Not choosing to go to your 8 a.m. psych class is the same thing as just waking up at 8 o'clock, going to the ATM, taking about $200 or $600, depending on where you go to school, out of an ATM, and just go ahead and flush those down the toilet in your dorm room, because that's the same thing as not showing up with your assignment to class. So we hit this with a very serious attitude. We also don't get to year 3 or 4 and say, well, I don't know if I've got the credits to graduate. Not acceptable. It's our job to be in the administration's office, in the advisor's office every semester to make sure that we're on track for an on-time graduation. We'll expect nothing less for ourselves because it's too expensive to do anything else. It's not acceptable to change majors after you've declared. It's too expensive. What we need to be telling our kids is, guess what? 80% of us are working in fields that we didn't graduate in that field of study anyway. We're working in something altogether different. So it's okay. What's important, though, is that you get your BA and that you get it on time. All right? And it's not okay to change universities. It's not worth tens of thousands of dollars to say, I don't really like this school anymore. I think I'll trade over to this school. Because credits are not transferring properly, and you're going to pay a huge premium for that, and it's not worth it. The only time it's okay to do that is like if you want to start at a community college, right? And that's fine as long as you have talked to school B if you want to transfer, and they've said we'll accept all of those transfer credits for, Psych 101 and Math 101 and English and all that. So we don't spend a dime over there unless it's going to transfer. Super important with the end in mind. The other big thing with this question is asking yourself the big one. How much is too much to pay for my education, right? Because I got to figure out how I'm going to pay for this in the long run. How much is too much? According to the Department of Education, you don't want to take out more debt than your first year's salary. This is interesting. We're going to talk about that in 1 second. But let's go back to this initial concept. Is the Department of Education lending out more than a lot of kids' first year salary? You bet they are. 3, 4, 5, 6 times what kids are actually making is what they're lending out. So they're saying one thing and then they're doing another. This is why we have to say no to excessive student loan debt, because they're just handing it out and it's going to be hugely detrimental to us all. So we need to say no to it. Huffington Post did a story. They asked the class of 2015, what do you believe that you'll be making upon graduation? Well, the class of 2015, 50% of them said, we believe that we'll be making $40,000 or more. So Huffington Post decided, why don't we go ahead and ask the class of 2013 and 2014 what they're actually making? And guess what? Only 2.5 kids out of 10, only 2 out of 10 are making $40,000 or more. That's it. The other 80%, considerably less. And guess what? 4, does that almost sound like half? It's almost half. 4 out of 10 are making less than $25,000. So what do those numbers tell us? Those numbers tell us that for 8 out of 10 of us, we better not be taking a dime over between $30,000 and $35,000. If we take a dime out more than that in student loan debt, it's going to sabotage our future, because the percentages just will not work on the other side of graduation. We will never be able to pay our bills with this excessive amount of debt. It is time to just say no to that insanity and start all things with the end in mind, including how we're going to pay for it. And we can pay for this debt. We can pay it back, but it's a painful process. I remember going through it. And here's a number for the kids to really know. If you're going to come out with $35,000 in debt, and I want you to pay it off in 5 years, okay? You just have to, because life gets so complicated after you start your late 20s and early 30s and you get married and start having children. You got to pay it off quick. And how you're going to pay it off? It's going to cost you about $600 to $700 a month for 5 long years. $600 to $700 to pay that off. And you don't have any choice but to do it as quickly as possible, because they are going to get paid. They're going to find you. It's like IRS debt. It's secured by the government. They know how to find you. You have got to be aggressive and start with the end in mind. Let's not let this number get any bigger. Let's do it. No more.